Here we go. Another rant. Another Luke rant. He's pissed off at the world again. I am. I'm quite annoyed at the world at the moment. I think I'm getting to that age now where I just don't care anymore. I really just don't care anymore, like, a lot of things. For a lot of things, to be honest with you. And I put out a rant video the other week, and I put it out there with a bit of trepidation. I was a bit like, I don't know if people are going to resonate with this. I'm not really sure if people will agree with me. And lo and behold, people definitely agreed with me. And, you know, people liked that video. So I thought, hey, maybe I do have more to say about these subjects, and people might actually be interested. To follow up on that video, I said I'm going to start building a community with courses and with different things like pulling experts in on certain subjects to disconnect from the digital world, reconnect outside, blah, blah, blah. That's going ahead. We're still doing it. And I'm officially calling it the Fellowship of the Luddites. Okay, so stay tuned for that if you want. But that's not necessarily what I'm talking about today. I'm here today with my son's Sting, which does glow blue when there's goblins nearby. Pretty sick, right? I read a book. I think it was like early this year, late last year. And do you know when you read a book and it really is something that just gets you and it changes your perspective on a lot of stuff, to be honest with you. And this one was really one of them. I've got raindrops all over my glasses. This was really one of them books. And yeah, it just changed the way I look at things. And obviously we've all had this weird feeling that the way we live is not the way we're supposed to live, right? You don't see the robin in the tree outside or a bear in the Pacific Northwest having to pay rent, having to pay taxes for where they're living, nor do they have to pay for the food that is grown and all this other stuff. Yeah, like the way that we have to pay for everything, and I feel like every single thing is taxed like crazy these days. Like, obviously all that stuff is a product of the way we live as humans, right? The only living thing on this planet that lives that way, and I think it's ridiculous. But I also want to preface this by saying I'm not going to be like, oh, back in the day was better, because I'm well aware that the medical industry in particular, in my opinion, is profound. We can have a healthy, what's called health span, living a healthy life for as long as possible, longer than we ever have before because of the medical industry, and for that, I'm truly grateful. But I do believe technology has progressed while humanity has regressed. I do believe that. I believe the quality of our life has got worse, even though we can live healthier for longer. Now, I say that because I look back at the history of, specifically here in the United Kingdom, right? I'm going to do a bit of a history lesson here. I spoke about it briefly on a reel recently. If you want to follow me on Instagram, @OriginalHuman, you'll see my rants on there as well. There was a time here in England where small villages had what's called common land. Okay, this common land didn't really have borders. It wasn't owned by anyone. It was the local wild land of the village you lived in. And your village had people who were experts at certain things. You had someone who was good at foraging, someone who was good at hunting, someone who was good at trapping, someone who was good at blacksmith or tapestry and artwork or music, or someone who had the local pub. And everyone had their little role that wasn't necessarily defined by self-idolization of wanting profits, right? These days we live in a world where it's so selfish, where it's like me, I need to make as much money at the, despair of everyone else. This didn't work like this. These small villages, they banded together. And so if your neighbour had to get in the crop because a certain weather event was happening soon, a lot of people got together and helped out. If people were lacking in the foraging industry, wasn't really an industry, but in the foraging department, they would go to the hunters and be like, we're really struggling for this. Is there anything we can trade? Can we make some sort of deal here? There was a really tight-knit community. Even if you didn't necessarily like your neighbour, you still worked together because it was your local village. And this common land was the heart and soul of these villages. This is where you would get your firewood for the winter. This is where you would hunt, where you would trap, where you would forage. This is where your kids would play. this was the life source of your village, this common land. This is where you would graze your cattle, okay? And again, it wasn't necessarily owned by anyone. However, there was an event, let me change this. There was an event that happened 1066 here in the UK. If you know your history, you know it well. One of the most pivotal moments in Western history. The Battle of Hastings, 1066, when William the Conqueror came over from France and conquered Britain. Okay? What happened was, all his mates, all his buddies, he divvied up all this common land to all his friends. And so, literally, you could have been living in a village, and for thousands of years, your family might have been hunters on that common land for your local village. That was your bread and butter. This was literally how you trained as a kid and how your dad trained, your granddad, your great-granddad. This was in your bloodline of, we are the hunters in the common land. Or it could have been the foragers. Or it could have been, we graze our cattle on this land. It's incredibly valuable to us. This land was so important. And overnight, this land got taken. It got taken and given to rich buddies of William the Conqueror. That had such an impact that still today, a lot of people who are higher upper class can still trace their lineage to that moment. And the land they still own today, is that common land that was divvied up and taken from me and you, from the regular people. And so this kind of had a domino effect on everything, right? If you can imagine, if you were the hunter and now all of a sudden, if you go and hunt on the land that you've been hunting on all your life and so is your ancestors, you will get killed. They will kill you. But you can't do it anymore. So what do you do? What do you do? Well, you have to find a new trade. Sometimes that doesn't really work, and so you have to go to the bigger cities. Everyone congregates to the bigger cities to get better jobs so they can earn a bit of money, so they can look after the family. And all of a sudden, that community is disbanded. It's gone. And so over the generations, you start thinking, well, I need to get land. I need to own my own land so that no one can take it from me again. I need to get my own land so I can do the stuff I used to do, but it's mine. All of a sudden, we've gone from a community mindset to an individualist mindset. Now, I'm paraphrasing all of this, right? I'm summarising it. There are other little intricacies involved that have changed things, and there's other influences, and we know that other cultures did have a weird way of land ownership, etc., etc. But for the most part, in Britain, this was the main way of living, common land, and it's gone. I read this in this fantastic book called The Lie of the Land by Guy Shrubsall. I will leave a link down below for this. And also, people have been asking me to do like a book recommendation videos for some of the books that I'm talking about. I will do that if you want. Let me know in the comments. I'll do that. There's also an absolutely phenomenal documentary called Our Land. And it's about the same thing. It's mostly about the right to roam. Basically, the idea is this common land that was all taken up by these rich people, rich, powerful people. A lot of it we can't access in the UK anymore. I think we can only access like 6% of the land. And I know this is if you're watching this from America, you're probably like, well, you don't own the land, you can't be on it. It's a very different like way of living. Bearing in mind, I've lived in both countries. In the UK, we have like this because we had common land back in the day, we still have this kind of cultural thing that we should be able to just traverse land. So if we see a mountain in the distance, we can walk to that mountain. Whereas in America, if private owns in between that, you could get threatened with weapons, right? It's not really like a cultural thing here in the UK. And that, again, stems from having common land and being like, well, no, I should be able to go over there because I live here, right? So yeah, just bear that in mind. The documentary is phenomenal. It's called Our Land. Highly recommend it. But what I'm trying to say is we've gone from living a very community-based life, which can, I'm presuming, be very fulfilling. If people look to you as the local blacksmith and you're proud of your work because everyone's like, our blacksmith in our town is phenomenal, you should check him out. Or if you're the forager and you know where all the stuff is and you help your mates out because they're like, oh, I really love chanterelles, is there any this season? And you can be like, mate, I know I can get them for you. And you help each other. There's this beautiful relationship, and I get it, it's not as simple as that. But that changed so much ethos in humanity to go from community-led living to individually led living. And I think that that's kind of developed over time to a point now where people are primarily selfish people these days. A lot of people are just in for it themselves. I got an offer for a sponsorship for an AI company, paying hundreds, well, it wasn't hundreds, it was thousands of pounds for a sponsorship. I think it was upwards of £3,000 for an integrated ad. And it's so easy for me to be like, I'm looking out for number one. I'm going to do this AI ad and make this money. But I've got an ethos. I've got a standard now that I've started to develop where I'm like, no, like some things mean more to me than money. And I truly believe supporting a lot of these AI things is going to be the downfall to nature. That's my belief. And I love my kids and I want the kids to be able to grow up and go in forests, etc. And I believe that pushing too much AI stuff that is unnecessary. This particular one was AI that I believe was unnecessary, right? You can have certain AI things that maybe in the medical industry might not be too bad, but some of them are just pointless shit, slop. And I believe that this was one of them. And it just means that I'm adding to the shit just for a self-indulgent way of wanting more and more and more. And I'm done with that. I don't want to live a life where I'm just like self-indulging without helping the people around me, being kind. And this all changed when I had kids. When I had kids, I realized, hey, it's not all about me anymore, you know? And so my ethos has changed and I'm starting to look at the old ways of living and think, you know what? That simple way of living might have been far more beneficial for us than this new way of isolation. We've never been more connected yet, so isolated. And this is why I want to build this community, the Fellowship of the Luddites. I want to build a tight-knit community, and I don't care if it's only 5 to 10 people. I want it to be people who are dedicated to legitimately helping each other, look after each other, educate each other, and live a simple life and have true discussions and debates. Not something where if you disagree with me, all of a sudden we're enemies. Bullshit, that. It's so stupid. We should be able to sit, chat, disagree, agree, find common space between the two, and like live a fulfilling life of community. And everyone's craving that. I know everyone's craving community. It's all everyone talks about these days. How many friends of yours have talked about wanting to get land with friends and live off grid? Everybody talks about that. And so that's why I want to build this community of people who genuinely want to be a part of something that's just a bit greater than self-idolization. Rant over. Rant is done for today. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Am I just going crazy? Maybe I'm just going crazy. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm going through a midlife crisis at the age of 34. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe I should just chill and sit here with me Gandalf pipe like an old boomer and pretend that the world isn't falling apart around me. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Helps with that mysterious YouTube algorithm. See you in the next video.